It's the Security Weekly News. I'm Doug White, and it is episode number 366. Welcome to the week of 3 March 2024. We got ToddleShark, Zeek, Stuxnet revisited, ICS, AMEX, Apple, Change, Josh Marpet, and more on this edition of the Security Weekly News.
This is a Security Weekly production for security professionals by security professionals. Please visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to all the shows on our network.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
It's the show that keeps you up to date on the latest security news twice a week. Your trusted source for accurate security information and expert analysis. It's time for the Security Weekly News.
Application Security Weekly delivers interviews and news from the worlds of AppSec, DevOps, and all the other ways people find and fix software flaws. Join us as we explore how the latest news highlights modern security practices and reminds us of the missing ones. We also bring insights from interviews on topics from training to threat modeling, from open source tools to cloud-native techniques, plus an occasional reference from new wave to synthwave. Find us at securityweekly.com/subscribe or look for Application Security Weekly wherever you pick your podcasts.
All right, it's the Security Weekly News, and I'm Doug White, and we got a fun show for you today. Kim Sucky is now using a malware named ToddleShark. I mean, I don't even know what that means. But the North Korean group that we all do know and love is exploiting Screen Connect flaws to place the malware on vulnerable systems. Now, this apparently has been going on since the 20th of February when ConnectWise, who makes Screen Connect, advised all their clients if you were using Screen Connect that you needed to immediately upgrade to new versions due to vulnerabilities. On the 21st of February, public exploits for the two main flaws were released. And of course, since they're released and handy dandy right there in front of you, probably with nice commented code that's been modularized, because these guys always write really good code. I've shown it to my students and go, see, this is how you should be writing code. Not this horrible mess you made. Look at these guys. They're illegal worldwide criminals, and they still take the time to document their code. But once those flaws came out, the attackers very quickly began to use them. Well, according to Kroll, ToddleShark is a polymorphic piece of malware, and it appears to be focused on long-term espionage and intelligence gathering. And if you don't know the term polymorphic, it essentially means that the code constantly sort of rebuilds itself somehow. So it changes and mutates all the time. And what that does for you is it helps you avoid detection because the signatures are never the same twice. They're never the same on any given system, and therefore it's really, really hard to spot. Now, ToddleShark uses binaries from Microsoft, so these are not vulnerabilities. Very clever coding. They go ahead and use stuff that's already on any given Microsoft system, and that means it's got a small footprint, it's hard to spot, and so on. Once it's running, it modifies the registry so it can remove all the anti-malware defenses and other defenses as well, like firewalling and things. It sets itself as a scheduled task so that it can persist even past maybe like a reboot, because then the scheduled task triggers it again and it loads right back up and drives you insane. And then, of course, it's used for exfiltration. So it just sits there pumping stuff up somewhere else. So ToddleShark is apparently a variant of Baby Shark and Recon Shark, the whole Shark family, but Baby Shark and Recon Shark, which of course were also tools that have been famously used by, or infamously used by, Kim Sucky. All right. CISA in the United States recently disclosed that ICS environments were subject to vulnerability from two critical and one high severity vulnerability in the EtherCat plugin for Zeek. Oh no. So more supply chain fun. So EtherCat is a parser that Zeek uses, and this is a widely used network security monitoring framework if you haven't seen it before, but it is pretty well known. Now, Zeek is a tool which allows background monitoring of network traffic, so like a lot of other things like SolarWinds and things like that. But Zeek has always been, at least for me, I had always heard of it in the context of ICS, even though it would obviously work other places, but it's often used in ICS to monitor threats. Now, plugins for the Industrial Control System Network Protocol, or the ICSNP parser, enhance Zeek and allow examination of traffic in weird ICS protocols, because there's a whole piles of them. But, stuff like BACnet, Ethernet IP, Modbus, OPC UA, S78COM, and EtherCAT are all different things that ICS devices often use to communicate. The report that came out was from the University of Central Florida, and they had found these issues. Now, Zeek says on their website they have more than 10,000 deployments worldwide, and that the plugin is an option. So you may not have it, but it is automatically bundled with Zeek in some security suites. So Zeek is often bundled up in things like Security Onion, and that this particular plugin is in Security Onion version of Zeek. So yeah. Well, the attacker then has to send a specially crafted packet over the Zeek network, which they said it could require access to the network, but that it also could be done over the internet, which I would presume means you've exposed your ICS. You shouldn't be doing that, mind you. But if you have, then, of course, they could reach that network. So if you're using Zeek or some of these tools that use Zeek, you might really want to check this out and follow the story to make sure that you've got this covered, or at very least don't expose any of this stuff because, yeah, maybe the bad guys aren't driving by in a white van, but they may well be on the internet. So if you didn't know that already. Well, since we're on ICS anyway, another group of researchers at the Georgia Institute of Technology published a paper about how modern HMI, and HMI is a term that you hear in ICS again, that stands for human machine interface. So this is the terminal where people work. And, these things in the modern age often have web-based interfaces. They used to not. They used to be these weird proprietary gadgets, but now they've got web interfaces. And after the pandemic, everybody enabled the web interfaces and often pushed the web interfaces out to the border so that their employees could work from home. Well, guess what? That creates a pretty big security threat, especially in that mindset of ICS where they say, we're so obscure, we're so hidden, nobody will ever know how to do this. And I'm like, yeah, till you put the web interface on the internet, and then, guess what? But traditional attacks on PLCs, which are programmable logic controllers, can be attacked at the firmware level. So this is a pretty complicated attack, if I do say so myself. Now, I know some of you are going, no, it's not. I can do this while, I'm juggling with my other hand and shouting, I'm in Swahili, and still think it's a simple attack, but not for me. But for most of us, it's a pretty complex attack. Now, in this particular research piece, they demonstrated a piece of malware which could abuse the legitimate web APIs that are being used for these HMIs, and they were able to disrupt the programmable logic controller and do all kinds of things to it. And if they can do that, they can disrupt the industrial process, they could damage the machinery, and I'm sure everyone at home is shouting Stuxnet right now. And if you don't know, Stuxnet was a very, very famous case where industrial centrifuges in Iran were targeted and caused to overspin and over-rev, and they damaged themselves. And this was, of course, the Iranian nuclear research industry, which is listed as a children's care building, but regardless. Now, I love the smell of gaseous diffusion in the morning, although actually you won't smell it for very long because your face will probably melt if you're huffing uranium gas. But hey, there's those of us who can do things like that. Aaron, I know you're listening. If anybody was going to huff uranium gas and come back going, it was okay, it would be Aaron, of course. But anywho, the malware is able to have JavaScript code hide in the browser cache, and that allows it to execute independently of the web page that actually installed it. That's pretty weird. But this apparently will continue running for about 24 hours on a lot of programmable logic controllers, even if the file gets removed from the server. So the malware persists beyond firmware updates and all kinds of things. Yow, that's bad. So these web-based APIs can really allow you to do just about anything because they have to, right? They have libraries that are going to allow you to write, read, change, etc., and they're very, very powerful. So the malware then could be used to upload files. It could be used to change files on the system. It could be used to exfiltrate data, whatever. And it can all be managed remotely with a command and control server. Yeah, that's just something to keep you up at night if you've got any of these systems in place. So fun little paper there. Well, American Express, one of the largest credit card companies in the world, announced that on the 4th of March that a third-party service provider was compromised. And this was the first they had disclosed about a breach that happened earlier in the year. So in January, they sent out a letter to, I guess, people that were affected. I didn't get one, so I guess that's good. But they said that some account information may have been exposed, but they were very adamant that no American Express-owned companies or controlled systems were compromised. Yeah, don't go adamant. But they went on then, and they said that some credit, it almost seemed contradictory. I remember seeing that thing, but it was like they said some credit card numbers, names, and expiration dates may have been compromised. I'm like, well, then they were exposed. You just said they weren't exposed, but apparently then you turned around and said they weren't exposed, but they were exposed. I mean, like, I told my wife I never bought a 58 Les Paul Gold Top at a pawn shop in Milan for 8,000 euros, but she didn't believe me. I was like, come look, I don't have one. Like, don't look in that case over there. But, I mean, I haven't even been back to Milan ever since Aaron and I were at that party, and, you know, there were those wild animals. No, I'm not even going to, you can't tell that story in a PG show anyway. I had to black it all out, so I blotted it out of my memory forever. But according to Bleeping Computer, a data breach notification was filed in the state of Massachusetts by AMEX, and AMEX said the breach took place at a service provider, so technically they didn't release anything. But this third-party service provider was used by a secondary provider for Amex called the Travel Services Division, which actually the official title of it is American Express Travel-Related Services Company, which is a name so literal, it sounds like it was translated from Chinese, because Chinese could be really, really literal. Like, you're like, what am I eating here? Oh, that's called green vegetable. Oh, okay. Well, cool. I mean, I like it. It's plain and simple. You could call it something weird, but, you know, when you call it green vegetable, you kind of know what you're getting. I mean, when the menu says green vegetable, you know what you're getting. It could say all these fancy French words that you don't know, but instead it just says green vegetable. I'm like, all right, I'm good with that. Anyway, it's not clear how many credit card users were involved, but it does accentuate the need to focus on third-party providers and the risk that they expose you to. You know, is that machine that dispenses currywurst and is connected to your network sitting down in the lobby so that all the charges people want to make for the currywurst can be made? Yeah. Is that on an isolated VLAN, or is it just running wide open on your network? And who put it in there? Note, we need more Würstelstand around. We really do. I mean, that's something we need in the U.S. Get on that. But anyway, check out your third parties today. Seriously. Well, Apple and the EU have been going at it. Hammer and tong, as they say in F1. They've been feuding over the Digital Markets Act, among other things, and Apple announced that they will no longer be able to fully protect iOS users from cyber threats, as it has to comply with this rule. Now, the 7th of March, which is 2 days from now, is the compliance deadline, and Apple published a 32-page white paper or manifesto, or whatever you want to call it, on the 1st of March that details all the changes they're going to have to make to be in compliance. Now, the rule is designed to protect competition in European digital markets, and it applies to 22 different services from 6 gatekeeper companies, which includes the Apple App Store. Now, in order to comply with the rule, Apple says in their white paper that they will need to allow side loading of iOS apps from alternative app marketplaces in the EU, as well as enabling other payment options besides Apple Pay, because, you know, they're kind of a monopoly, if you haven't noticed. But the changes are expected to be implemented in iOS 17.4 this week, but will only apply to users in the EU. Alphabet, Amazon, ByteDance, Meta, and Microsoft are the other players in this game, and they're all required to comply this week. Now, sideloading on the iPhone, basically what that means, if you're not familiar with the term, is it means you as a user can load apps from other app stores, because they don't allow that right now. And that's where the whole monopoly thing comes from. It's like you only get what Apple lets you have. Now, Apple, of course, is saying, hey, we evaluate those things and take responsibility for them. Now, it's the Wild West. You're going to, you go to some website called hackme.com and sideload an app onto your iPhone. Hey, not our problem, not our circus, not our monkeys. But that's going to allow more options to download and install apps that the users choose. But of course, that means less control over what you're installing, and all the liability is pushed down to the user level. So you're going to be responsible for that app you installed to play Angry Birds in Polish or whatever. And good luck. But Apple says they're not going to be able to, nor will they bother to vet these sideloaded apps. So you're on your own. Now, Apple had already been fined this week $1.8 billion with a B, $1 billion, €1 billion by the EU for thwarting competition, not in this area, but among music streaming. Yeah, and this was the result of a 5-year investigation that Spotify, imagine that, their competition started saying, hey, this is a monopoly. We're not allowed in the marketplace. So they were fined $1.8 billion in that one. The ruling said that Apple had illegally used its App Store dominance to create a barrier to entry for rivals. Imagine that. I mean, I know you're shocked as much as I am that Apple is a monopoly, but hey, that's end stage capitalism, as they say. Change Healthcare. Well, and their parent, United Health Group, because everybody's got to have a parent, right? So Change and United Health Group, they refused to answer this specific question, quote, did you pay the ransom? But Recorded Future, a company, spotted, this is kind of sketchy, but it's an interesting story. Recorded Future said they spotted a Bitcoin wallet, which is believed to be linked to AlphaV/Black Cat, which recently received 350 Bitcoins on the 1st of March. Now that's about 22 million with an M dollars currently. Change Healthcare has admitted they were hit with Black Cat ransomware late in February, which caused their systems to be taken offline. It disrupted prescriptions and services at thousands of locations in the United States, including pharmacies at Walgreens and CVS. So if you were like one of those, not me, of course, one of those people headed down there to get your, Viagra or whatever, and they're saying, sorry, pharmacy's closed. We could sell you these over-the-counter, baby aspirin. You can snort them or something. I don't know what you do with that stuff. But it would also appear that AlphaV or Black Cat, as I'm just going to call him Black Cat because I don't know how to say the other part, Black Cat may have stolen the Bitcoins from their affiliate group who actually infected Change. The affiliates claim they still have 4 terabytes of data, and they're not honoring the ransom because all this was stolen from them. So 4 terabytes of data that Change and its partners own. Oops. So the affiliates issued a warning on their website that says, quote, be careful, everyone, and stop dealing with AlphaV. Wow. So the pirate I was working for robbed me and left me floating in a barrel in the middle of the Sargasso Sea. And I think it was Dread Pirate Roberts. But, I thought these were some fine, upstanding pirates that had all the right morals, but I guess I was wrong. So, the moral of the story is, of course, when you treat with pirates, you get pirated. Yeah, something like that. So, whatever. Well, now we've talked about this one before, and I've said this many times. I see both sides of this whole thing. I really do. Police would love to have a skeleton key to unlock encryption, and most people are not comfortable with that. Well, until they find out that terrorist that lives next door to me is using it to plan an attack on my aquarium while I'm out, and we want the police to go read those emails where they ordered a case of poison goldfish food. Then I want the police to read it, but not any other time. I don't want them looking at my orders for whatever, but my dark web orders for mushrooms or whatever, because that we don't want them to see. But when my neighbor's a terrorist, a goldfish terrorist, yeah. Well, this may get a resolution of sorts, since a European court upheld the use of strong encryption as a basic right to privacy. Now, the ruling has no impact outside of the people who signed this treaty, which does not include the United States, but it may ease pressures on U.S.-based social media companies to provide encryption keys to law enforcement and so forth when requested by law enforcement. Now, Director Wray of the FBI has said that encryption is one of the major challenges to law enforcement, since we can pretty much encrypt anything today, right? I mean, I will say, if it became known that there was an encryption that had a skeleton key for law enforcement, would anyone use it? We've seen it in the past, and guess what? Nobody wanted it. Of course, if they require you to use it, so if one of those social media companies comes back and says, sorry, you're going to have to use Leo number 5 here, and yes, there's a skeleton key backdoor in it so the police can open it if they get a warrant. So, then what? You just double encrypt everything? I mean, triple encrypt it, quadruple encrypt it, encrypt the encryption keys, and then encrypt the encryption again? I mean, obviously there's ways around this. Yeah, I mean, they're not going to win this one. I'm telling you. I mean, I get it when there's a child rapist running around, and I mean, I've been, with police when this kind of stuff was going on. Everybody out there is cheering for go get their emails, give them a warrant, let them wiretap these people, and so on and so forth, because I completely agree. But then some sheriff's deputy in Vingenberg decides to crack their ex-partner's account to see what they're up to, and boom, you've got huge privacy violations and all kinds of stuff and so forth. Or worse, when some kid is given the keys to the kingdom and decides to impress his friends on Discord with all the information he's taking from the police department and showing it to them, that's a big problem. So it sounds like, since they're not going to allow this to be done in Europe, it's going to mean the social media companies in the United States are going to say, look, folks, we're not doing this either. I mean, it's not clear what's going to happen, but we'll see. There's going to have to be, and there's going to continue to be pressure from law enforcement to read secret chats, phone calls, and so forth. The military wants this, and so on and so forth. So who knows? Well, slinky juggling was a sport so extreme that even Penn Jillette said, no, I can't do this. But this guy holds the world record for it. Please welcome slinky juggling expert Josh Marpet. Hey, Josh.
Slinky juggling?
Hey.
Slinky juggling. Do I look like a God-blessed slinky juggler? Dear God. So, pleasure to be here as always, my friend. And actually, I've got the article that's there, and I've got sort of a breaking twofer thing. At time of filming, if you're trying right now, like, don't freak out. Facebook and Meta and everything Meta is down. Like, just be aware. Anyway, other than that, let's talk about the article that I've put into the show notes, and that's the most fun one I've seen so far. And the reason that it's the most fun is because there's a lawsuit going on between a law firm and its MSP. And the MSP said, well, we are protecting all of your things. We are doing the best we can to keep track of your technology and protect you and do all sorts of good stuff. And we're backing you up using Acronis, which is, I think I'm pronouncing that right. Is it Acronis? Which is, a very reputable backup company. And unfortunately, they got ransomware, which, refers right back to your ALP, Alpha V and Black Cats and all of the baby shark and mommy shark and every other shark under the sun. I don't even. And and I have small children, so every time you say ToddleShark and Baby Shark, the song just keeps going through my damn head, and it's killing me. I'll be honest with you, okay? But realistically, the law firm got ransomware. They're now suing for $1 million. Okay. Now I did a little research, and I mean by little, I mean I Googled a few things. Let's be clear, this is not big. But the Martindale-Hubbell record for that law firm says that they have about 43 people. So I rounded up to 50. And your rule of thumb is for an MSP is that you're going to have about $100 to $150, maybe even $200 in high cost of living area. And they are in not San Francisco, but in the Bay Area, I believe. So $100 per user per month. So with 50 users at $100 per month, it's $5,000 a month. With $200 per user, it's $10,000 a month. So these people were paying $10,000 a month at the high end, is my assumption. That's my assumption, let's be clear. And they're suing for $1 million. And they're probably suing that high because it's loss of business, loss of revenue, reputational loss, whatever, okay? Unfortunately, most MSPs have a limits to liability and limits to indemnification and so on and so forth, so that normally it's like about 2 months. So if you get ransomware, you can get about 2 months worth of money back from your MSP. And honestly, the bad will and the bad blood that comes about by trying to get that money back is normally not really worth doing. Normally, you want to work with them to figure out what went wrong, stop the bleeding, fix the damage, and get back in operation, rather than have an antagonistic environment and relationship with them thereafter. But, it's a law firm, and they're lawyers. And what do lawyers like to do? They love to sue. So this law firm is suing for $1 million. Now, first off, is that the right choice? I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I'm a technologist and a compliance person these days. And frankly, I think that this is a really, really bad choice. Why? Let me ask you a question. You're a law firm, not this law firm, just any law firm. And you have an MSP, because most law firms have MSPs. They're not technologists. Get a technology firm to handle our technology, right? Okay, cool. And your technology firm, your MSP, says, hey, law firms are starting to sue if they have a problem. Well, that's going to my mind, that's going to raise the risk that this law firm is going to sue. Any law firm could sue if they have any kind of problem. As an MSP, what are you going to do? You're going to raise your rates. You're a law firm? You want to do business with me? Cool. Here's my new rates. What are they? At the very least, I'm going to double my rates. I mean, if you're going to sue me for $1 million, I better have made $1 million out of you before you sue me. Okay? So that means that over the course of a couple of years, I want to make whatever amount of money you're going to sue for, I want to have made that out of you. So your rates for every law firm across the country are about to go through the roof. And cyber insurance rates for every law firm and any legal style firm are about to go through the roof. So effectively, while this is a potential windfall for the law firm, $1 million, because remember, their time is effectively free or darn close to it. The after effects of this are going to be absolutely monstrous. I'll tell you right now, my personal prediction is that there's going to be MSPs and MSSPs that are going to refuse to do business with law firms, hit them with onerous, like huge fees, huge costs, or say things like, hey, we'll do business with you, but you have to use absolutely our tech stack. No variations, no customizations, no integrations. You use our tech stack or have a nice day, goodbye. I'm honestly looking forward to seeing what happens because I'm kind of curious how the market reacts. And I think this is going to be a fascinating footnote in history for MSPs and cyber insurance companies going, okay, we'll do business with you, but either our rates are going to go through the roof because we're pricing for the risk, or you're going to have to go through a significant pen test that you're going to pay for, law firm, and we're going to take the results of and then decide how much we're going to charge you, and you don't get to say. So again, irrespective of the facts of the matter in this case, and there's another aspect to this I'll get into in a minute, I think this is going to change the technology and business landscape for MSPs and MSSPs, at least in the legal, is that a sector, division, area, group, whatever, for some time to come. And by the way, the other aspect of this is that they're also suing Acronis. They're suing the backup provider. Well, why? I mean, as long as, okay, if the MSP set up the backups properly, then backups were being done. Why are you going to sue your backup provider? There's not enough detail in the article. I can't tell why. Are they saying that backups weren't done properly? Well, that would be the fault, if any, of the MSP, you would think. Were the backups not restorable? Well, again, that would probably be the fault of the MSP if they're not restorable because they should be testing the restores. But if you want somebody to actually test restores to make sure that data files, backups to make sure they're restorable, you're going to have to pay for that service. It's not going to be that cheap. You have to pay for somebody to go in and say, all right, pick a file, pick a server, pick a system, pick an application. Let's restore it. Let's make sure it runs. Let's test it. This takes time, effort, and it costs money. So again, costs are going to do nothing but go up. So while this lawsuit might be the right thing for that law firm, I personally, my opinion, cutting off your nose to spite your face because it's going to hurt in the long run. Thank you. Back to you, Doug.
Okay, sorry, you caught me off guard.
Sorry,
I was changing, but fortunately, yeah, you can't see below the desktop, so we're good to go. No, there's an old adage is called sue everyone and worry about the consequences later. I mean that's your typical strategy for that kind of thing. So I'm not at all shocked that they're suing everyone and anyone because you just sort of let it see where it falls.
Yeah, but I don't think this is going to be a good move in the long run.
Well, I've always, my other adage would be don't mess with law firms because they tend to mess back. So, if you start going, yeah, we're gonna push you around, guys, they're like, really? Are you? Okay, let's see how that works out for you. So here's a mountain of paper in a semi truck. You can start by sorting through that and the other 6,476 motions we're going to file in the next 2 weeks in every single state in the union. Because yeah, but hey, we'll see how it works out, right?
Amen.
All right. Thank you, Josh. And finally, as if everyone wasn't already worried enough about AI, researchers have now demonstrated the use of a generative AI worm, which can spread from one system to another. I wasn't totally clear on exactly. I think the generative AI is actually finding ways to spread. So it's not just like fire and forget. I mean, I've written some worms like that, and they take advantage of various things, but with the generative AI worm, I guess it could find the biggest weakness and exploit that, maybe rank things and go, oh, which vulnerability should I use since you haven't patched anything since 1997? But, that kind of thing. Well, according to Cornell Tech researchers, you now have the ability to conduct or to perform a new kind of cyber attack that had not been seen before. The worm was created by Ben Nassi, Stav Cohen, and Ron Bitton, and they named it Morris 2. And if you don't remember the Morris worm in 1988 because you weren't born yet, well, that's okay. No, it's not Shai Hulud. It's the original internet worm. Although I guess Shai Hulud was the original worm since that was from long before the internet even existed. But, big makers, small makers, that kind of stuff. Sorry, Dune 2 came out, and all these people who haven't read the books 100 times are calling me and asking me to explain things like, why was Paul Atreides that called? Just drop it. Okay, just watch the movie, eat some popcorn, you'll be fine. Have a couple of nips, it'll all be okay pretty soon. It's just like 3 hours and you're out, okay? And you can say you saw it. But anyway, or read the books. But yeah, we don't want to do that. Anyway, the researchers used what they called an adversarial self-replicating prompt as the basis for a generative AI worms. A lot of academia kind of terms in there. They used this attack on an email system that they created, and then the AI found ways to exploit. So it found different holes. It's a pretty fun paper. I'm not going to dig into it because we don't have time, and not all our viewers are interested in such things. But I did post a paper because I thought some of you might actually like to read it. They do have links to all the academic papers if you want to read the actual code and all the other stuff. I would advise you to read it, or go see Dune 2, or better yet, read Dune. And you have to read Dune Messiah if you want to see Dune 2. You can't watch Dune 2 without Dune Messiah. Sorry, I hate to tell you. There's 30,000 years of galactic history being covered in 2.5-hour movies. So if you think that they can get all that in, it is very beautiful, though, I will say, and it does do some justice to the books. But, I'm sorry. Fremen cover their faces, folks. They don't put on cool-looking hoodies. They cover their faces because they're losing. Yeah, they wear the plugs, but they also don't have their head bared. That's like an offensive thing. I mean, I had to stand up in the theater and start ranting about it. People threw stuff at me. It was embarrassing. I was like, come on, Villanueva. You can do better than that. But anyway, that is the news. Thank you, Josh. We'll see you Friday on the Security Weekly News.